Hi everyone, and welcome to our crystal healing interview with Philip Permutt. I am so excited to be talking to you today, Philip. Can you please introduce yourself to everyone and tell us a little bit about how you got started working with crystals?
Yes, I'm Philip Permutt. I've been working with crystals for 23 years, and I started by getting ill, basically. I got a background in lots of alternative things. My father was really into dowsing. When I was sort of 7 years old, we were going around Stonehenge and dowsing the stones there, where you could still actually go in and touch the stones and be with them. And that was yeah, we just spent loads and loads of time doing that. He ran a Bureau for the Investigation of Paranormal Photographs, so all of sort of the spirit stuff was just totally normal, everyday stuff to me. The alternative side of healing, I never needed. I was a healthy kid. I was healthy up to my sort of early 20s. And then one day I sort of ended up in hospital just being really ill. And I had Crohn's disease, which is relatively common actually now. It's a disorder of the gut, basically, where the gut swells in and squashes itself, is the easy way to put it. I had a bowel resection where they sort of cut two bits of bowel out and stick them together with Evo stick or chewing gum or whatever they can get their hands on. And then it never sort of was quite right. And after a few years, I had another bowel resection, and then I had another one. And one day, the doctors came to me after the third bowel resection and said, the operation was a great success, but sorry, you can't walk because we severed the sciatic nerve going to your leg. And I thought, okay, maybe we should look at some of this alternative stuff then. And I started looking at alternative things. My wife was really into it as well. She got loads of people in to do healing, to send healing. And I tried everything you have ever heard of, and some stuff you've never heard of as well. And I'm sure that all of it helped in one way or another. And the result was 6 weeks and 2 days after I was told that I couldn't walk, I walked out of the hospital without crutches or sticks or anything. Slowly, but I walked all by myself. And the thing that said to me was, okay, what is actually going on here? Something's going on. And at some stage in the deep and distant past, I did a science degree at university. And the great thing about crystals is you can touch them and hold them and feel them and they're there, rather than sort of the hands-on energy healing of any type is sort of, it's there, but what do you do with it? How do you actually hold it and sort of test anything? So it was crystals that I ended up with, and I started off just experimenting for myself. There were in those days virtually no crystal healers around, so it was just try it and see what happened. There were a few books. There were one or two by English authors, one or two by American authors, but very, very little on the market at all. And it really was just try it, see what happens. And because I knew it worked for me, I almost immediately started seeing clients and trying to help other people. And my first client was a lady, an elderly lady actually, who was suffering from cancer, and she'd been told she had 6 months to live. And I just thought, well, can I help her or not? You know, we may as well try. And she was actually in a strange situation because she was elderly. She'd had a really good life. She was happy with her life. And she was also happy that it was time, you know, to go, to pass on to whatever there was there. And it was about January time. She wanted to, I don't know, her oldest granddaughter, that was it, was getting married in the summer. And all she wanted to do was go to that wedding. And she actually said to me, all I want to do is go to the wedding, and then I'll just go to sleep, lie down, and you know, I'll go. And we worked. I started to, because also, yes, she was my first client. So I had so many clients at the time. I had one client. So I could only see her every day. So I saw her every day for a few weeks. And then slowly I had more clients. So it sort of slowed down. But she was in less pain. She stopped taking, well, she didn't stop taking, but she reduced her dose of morphine. She started getting up and moving around. So when I saw her originally, she was more or less bedbound. Yeah, pain, yeah. And also the effect of the morphine just knocking her out the whole time. Then eventually came round to the wedding, and she went to her granddaughter's wedding. She danced at her granddaughter's wedding. And the following year, she went to another granddaughter's wedding. And about 2.5 years later, she died peacefully in her sleep one night. And that sort of just set, I mean, by that time, I was already working with lots of other people, but that really set off the process. And when you get a first client like that, it's sort of one of these golden things, isn't it, that just says to you, yeah, this is what it's supposed to be.
And so what did that experience teach you then about crystal energy? What did you start to kind of infer and draw from that based on your background in science and your work with the energy healing?
It's about possibilities. And there are lots of people say crystals work in different ways. I don't know if I know how they work, but my guess would be it's something to do with dark matter and dark energy. It's sort of the edge of research. CERN in Switzerland and France, they're sort of running these experiments at the moment. There's telescopes looking out into space that have just started to recognize dark energy actually exists. It can interact with our normal energy. It can pass through it. It could explain a whole load of things that we can't explain at the moment.
Yeah. And so out of that experience of working with clients consistently and starting to build your practice, did you notice any trends with working with crystals? Like, what did you start to learn about people and the way that crystals interact with our energy fields?
Oh, well, the first thing that I noticed is that most of my early clients had the same condition that I had. And so it's very much like drawing like. And if they didn't have the same condition, then they had something in their personality or temperament that I could recognize as me or part of me. And I think this actually carries on now, that crystals sort of amplify that link. And we've got links, we all have links between us, and you and I do, and everyone who's listening to this one way or another does, or watching it. And crystals amplify those links. It makes them, you don't always know what they are, because crystals are talking their own language. And even when we've been working with them for years, sometimes we don't quite understand what they're saying. We know they're saying something, but what they're saying, who knows? So, oops, that shouldn't be there. What have I learned about it? Crystals help the body to do anything that the body can do. I think that's the best way to look at it. So in a really coarse example, if you have a bruise on your arm and you take a crystal, the bruise will heal quicker. If someone's had their arm amputated, then a crystal is not going to grow it back.
But anything that you have within yourself, the crystal can help with that.
Yeah, if the body can do it, the crystal will help the body to do it better, will help the body to do it quicker. And sometimes that's really essential, because in an extreme situation, if the body is running out of time to do something, then the crystal can make a difference. But also on a simple basis, just every day, if your crystals are keeping you well, you're not picking up everyday bugs, you're not getting run down, you can help a load more people. You can enjoy your life much better.
That's very true. And you know, one interesting thing you said was that we have this kind of connection as healers to the people that we work with, and we can always kind of find common ground. And I think that has a lot to do with the crystal energy, but I think that's also kind of the nature of a lot of people who are drawn to healing, right? We have that natural kind of, I don't know, I guess, connection to being empathic and being able to put ourselves in others' shoes and connect with people and just try and come from a place of understanding when we're working with them. And then we have these amazing tools that amplify that connection even more and then help facilitate this person's healing. And I think that's one thing that's very common among many healers is we realize that we're not, you know, some magical people. We're not doing the work. It's the person, it's the client themselves that's really having this transformation take place.
Yes, they do all the hard work. We just help them. And that's something that I love in teaching as well, is that anyone can be a crystal healer. And some people can do it just on a simple everyday basis for themselves or their friends and family. Other people will turn it into a business and want to be a professional healer. But everyone has got it in them to do something. And if more people did it, then the whole world would be just a little bit better. And one of my I was going to say one of my dreams along the way was the idea to put a crystal in every single home. And strangely enough, with modern technology, it's actually doing it for us.
That's true. That's true. So instead of a chicken in every pot, it's a crystal in every home.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, Philip, what's the thing that you most enjoy about crystal healing? What is it about crystals that makes you feel so passionate about this?
I love when they do things you don't expect. When they tell you things about yourself that you know, but you either didn't really want to admit to yourself, or that you weren't really aware it could affect you in that way. Things that become positive out of negatives. You want an example of that, don't you?
Well, no, I think that's a common experience as well, because they do really help shift also your perspective and your thinking on a given situation and help you see and appreciate the gifts in a situation, even one that you initially perceive as negative, and being able to shift that way that our consciousness works to understand and appreciate why we're having a given experience, I think is one of the beautiful things about them. I know, just speaking from personal experience, my outlook and perspective have shifted enormously. I'm so much more confident. I believe in myself. I believe in others. I feel so much more connected to other people and to our world that we live in. And I think a lot of people in modern society who are feeling more closed off or more disconnected, crystals are a great way to help open that back up again.
Absolutely, and a very, very natural way. I mean, I find time after time after time, students just say this is such a natural way of working. You put crystals in their hands, and they almost know what they're doing with them as if they've been doing it their whole life. It's almost not really teaching them how to do it. It's sort of guiding them and pointing them in the right direction.
And do you think that's instinct or intuition or a bit of both?
I think mankind's been using crystals since whenever we were people, or maybe even before. Definitely 40,000 years. Some people say 200,000 years. So there's the skeleton character Lucy that was found in Ethiopia, a very famous one. I don't know if she's in the States, but she is very much in Europe. And she was found in Ethiopia, I think in the 70s or 80s, probably the 1980s. And she's the oldest person, in inverted commas, that's ever been found, about 200,000 years old. Some people say she's 2 million years old, but most people will agree about 200,000. And she's a little short, but other than that, she's basically the same as you or I. And they found all sorts of things with her. They found carnelian beads that had actually been fashioned and made into beads and drilled. Why? You know, the earliest human tomb that there is has crystals in it. They found the sheep, ankle bones of sheep, which are almost perfect cubes, and they're carved with different symbols on the 6 sides. And anthropologists believe that they were used for divination. So people 200,000 years ago, before we were Homo sapiens, and we were a step before, we were already doing all of this. So when you put a crystal in someone's hand, it feels normal. And sometimes one of the bits I love is when you get someone who, the skeptic, if you like, and they come along and they've come to a talk. Usually they've come with their wife, actually. And women do tend to be more intuitive about it. I know that's a big generalization, but it shows up in numbers. But sometimes you'll get someone come along, and a man might be very sort of scientifically minded, maybe he is a scientist, and he comes along and doesn't want to know anything about it. But you put a crystal in his hand and it changes. And even if especially actually, if he can't understand it, he wants to now understand. and he can feel something. Yeah, yes. And I suppose a lot of people are happier not to rationalize, just to accept something's happening. And I sort of fall in between the two, because sometimes my brain's really going and saying, well, how's this working? What's going on? And other times it's saying, does it matter? It works. I know this. And how does it work? I don't care, actually.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about crystals, though, is that experience, that we can all share in. And like you said, it just feels so natural. It's almost like a part of us, a part of human nature at this point, because of the long, long history of using these crystals for tons of things: divination, meditation, healing, and that all adds up after a while. Well, you mentioned skeptics, Philip, and sometimes, people will almost want to come to a lecture or something just to question, to sit back and question. Having an alternative sort of career and being very much in the spotlight of a rather niche industry, I suppose, because you're about as mainstream as it gets for a lot of crystal healers. What is the biggest challenge that you've faced pursuing this kind of career? And how did you work through that or overcome that?
I found the biggest problem was probably some members of my family. Not my immediate family, but sort of the step away from that, the extended family, if you like. And the way I got through that was quite simply just to say, this is what I'm doing. That's the end of the conversation. Love me or don't. That's it. And I think that's what I do the whole time with everyone. And it's just, this is what I do. Take it or leave it.
But what advice would you give someone about, really kind of standing in your own power that way? Because in the end, we all have to do what feels right to us and what makes us happy. And I know, there are probably people watching that feel like, oh, I would love to do that, but, and it's so easy to come up with excuses and reasons why we can't move forward with what really feels right in our heart. How would you say, for someone to move forward who's maybe in that place of fear-based thinking and they're kind of stuck?
Get a really, really gorgeous tourmaline crystal. Either something you could wear or something small enough that you can carry, that you can pop in your pocket or your bra and just keep with you 24 hours a day. Every time you doubt yourself or what you're doing at all, just take the crystal out and hold it. And then carry on doing what you're doing. And the most important thing is to stay true to yourself. Every time something comes up, you've got an inner pendulum inside yourself, which is sort of somewhere around your tummy. And it's the bit that sort of goes up and down the whole time and says yes and no to everything. And we teach people how to work with pendulums and crystal pendulums the whole time. And yeah, get yourself a crystal pendulum. And as you work with it and it says yes, you'll feel that bit inside you, that feeling coming up. And as it says no, you'll feel that sinking feeling. We've all experienced it, because we've all had that experience where we've been in a room and we've just thought, get me out of here, I don't want to be here. And that's that sinking feeling that we've all experienced it. And we've all experienced the high, the up, that's right, wow, this is brilliant, amazing. And it's the bit in between that happens the whole time, where these very, very, very little movements. And if you work with the crystal pendulum, every time you see it sort of going around to say yes, or backward and forward to say no, whatever, you recognize more that feeling inside you. And it's a really good tool to work with.
So Philip, what advice would you have for someone then who is ready to take that step and follow what feels right to them in their heart and soul, and take a path, a journey into a career as a crystal healer? What have your years of experience in the field taught you? What tips could you share?
The first thing is trust yourself. So speak to loads of people and don't believe everything you hear. If you feel good about someone, work with them. If you don't feel good about them, go somewhere else. When you're looking on the internet, there's loads of really good advice and there's loads of absolute rubbish. And Don't believe everything that you see. If you feel good with someone, or if you're reading a book and it feels good to you, trust it. Go with it. Find yourself a good teacher who can help you along the way, and don't limit yourself to only following one teacher, because then they become sort of almost guru-like and sort of raised above on a platform that doesn't help anyone at all. Talk to different people, see different people, and most important thing of the lot, get crystals in your hands. Yes, get dirty with the crystals. Get your hands in them. Absolutely. You cannot do crystal healing without crystals.
And you brought up a really great point of, seeking out multiple teachers, right? Because there's never just any one viewpoint that's the right one, right? We all have something to share. We all have something to, experience with one another, and that learning and sharing is so important. Now, have you ever come across in your work anyone that has challenged that, where they say, well, this is the only way to do this, or this is what's right and all the other ways are wrong? And what would you kind of respond to with that?
My advice to anyone who comes across that is just to go somewhere else. Because if we're all honest amongst ourselves, we know that we're right. You know you're right. I know I'm right. And everyone else doing this knows they're right. But we also know that we were a different right yesterday or last week or last month or last year. And we will be a different right again next week or next month or next year. Yeah. So it is a very, very movable feast. It flows. We change with it. So anyone who says this is the only way to do something, they must be wrong. And everyone else could be right.
That's so true, and I can relate to that. I mean, I used to do things differently with some of my crystals than I do now, and that's just because, through my experience working with them and learning from other people and trying things for myself, I've just changed my mind about, how I think some things work or are, and I think that's good, right? Here in the States they call that a flip-flopper, but I'm okay being a flip-flopper. I like that I know I have, enough comfort inside of myself just to say, like you said, well, this is what's right for me today, and that might change tomorrow, and that's okay.
And the other thing I think I feel quite strongly about is everything that we do should work within everyone's belief system. So it's totally open to anyone of any religion, any thought process. Whatever anyone believes doesn't change the efficacy of crystals.
Yes. Because this isn't necessarily a spiritual path or religion. A lot of people get like healing work and religious beliefs kind of mixed up or intertwined, and this really isn't meant to be that. Like you said, it should be accessible and available to everyone. It should be able to be integrated with any type of spiritual belief system, and I think that it can be quite easily, actually.
I think when we look back at sort of the old religions, they all talk about crystal healing in different ways. They all have sacred stones, or power stones, or things which are protective, or amulets. They're there in every single religion. So, the basis of everyone's religion has it.
Yeah. And Philip, could you take just a few minutes to tell everyone about any projects you have going on, books that you have coming out, workshops you'll be teaching, or where they can find you online?
Okay, online is really easy. thecrystalhealer.co.uk. That's .co.uk. And this is my latest book, which you can probably see there. Oh, yes, there you go. And you'll notice it's a pocket book. And this is the thing that my publishers have really got into recently, is the idea of bringing out pocket guides. And it just makes it really accessible. Now, I'm going to bring it back here, because over here, you see, it looks like a giant book, but back here it looks... And yes, you have to have big pockets. It's not really a little pocket guide, but it is really... Yeah, absolutely, it's a handbag book. But the thing that it allows you to do is when you're out and about, it's really accessible. It's in color. This particular one's actually based on the chakras, so you can just follow it through. It's got all of the examples. It's actually the full-size book, just shrunk. Yeah, so that's the latest one. This one, Little Book of Crystal Tips and Cures, that's also a pocket one. Yeah, that's been around for a while, but it was a little bit bigger, and they've just brought it out in this form as well. And of course, there are others, but this one is, of course, the Crystal Healer.
And this is one I actually recommend to a lot of my students because I love the way it's organized. You have everything organized in there kind of by color. So if you're kind of new to stones, it makes it so much easier to find what you're looking for and flip through, because maybe you don't always remember the name of your carnelian, but you can look in that orange section and then it's a lot easier to narrow it down and go, ah, there's the one that I was looking for.
There are a few things about this, because this was the first book that I wrote, and I feel passionately about it because I wrote it because I was fed up with a few things about crystal books. So sorry anyone else, but not everyone else, just some people. The first thing is photographs. And most crystal books used to, it's getting better now, I agree, but they used to have either absolutely dreadful photographs that didn't look like anything, or they had the most amazing photographs of the fantastic museum and collector's pieces that you're never going to see in a shop, and if you did see it, you're not going to afford it.
Right.
So we resolved that by simply having everything in colour and colour-coded, and every single photograph is a professional photograph, but it's also of regular stock out of my store.
Yeah, something that anyone could find.
Yeah, so you should be able to find something that looks like that photograph in any decent crystal shop.
You know, the other thing I really love about that book, Philip, that I think a lot of books do fall short on, is not only do you cover the crystal properties, but you also give some regular ways that you can incorporate crystals into your life every day, which I think most books are either one or the other. They'll either tell you how to use the stones or they'll tell you what the stones do, but they don't give you both. And that's why I love that book.
Thank you. I like that section in the back, which is not as pretty, but it does have 500 regular ailments and the crystals to actually work with and what to do with them. It's really simple, as in, you know, carry this crystal, hold this crystal to wherever it is. It will help. And yeah, I like it. If I've got time, I wanted to tell you about one crystal. Can I do that? This guy here. Yeah, citrine crystal. And yeah, I got him many years ago when I just started working really with crystals, and he was too expensive then. I couldn't afford him, but I still got him. And he was on a shelf and he just screamed. It's actually, I think it might have been my first trip to Tucson, actually, to the gem show there. And he screamed. He just said, me. Okay. So, and he came home. And I got him home and I thought, right, what are we going to do? And he said nothing. I mean, literally nothing. Nothing at all. So I tried him working with clients. Didn't want to know. I tried meditating. Didn't want to know. Anything at all. Just did not want to know. And so eventually he became just an object of beauty. And he sat around the house in different places, sometimes on a coffee table, sometimes on a shelf, sometimes on a window ledge, and moved around for about 4 or 5 years. And then one day I was opening the post at breakfast, and he was actually sitting on the window ledge next to the breakfast table. And I picked up an envelope and he just screamed, me! And I thought, okay. And I carried on opening the letter, and it was the contract for my first book. And all those years before, he knew that I was going to do that. And so he always sits now here next to my computer when I'm writing. Yeah, and all of the time, he's here actually more or less the whole time now, because I'm writing almost the whole time something. Yeah, so.
Oh my gosh, that's such a beautiful story. So it's like you were drawn to that crystal, you had to have it in your life, and it wasn't until years later that it really became a useful, helpful tool for you.
Yes. And crystals can very often be predictive. And the number of times that I've seen people pick a crystal, find out what it's for, and think, oh, no, I don't need that. And I say to them, no, 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 go for it. You've been drawn to it. Just go with it and worry about it later. And it's always something that they need, sometimes in a few hours, um, but sometimes well in the future. Yeah. Yeah. If you're drawn to a crystal, go for it.
And it's been my experience that every time there's something like that piece where I just know I have to have it, there have only probably been 2 times that I've ever walked away and just gone, oh no, I can't do that right now. And you just really kick yourself for it later, don't you? And so
Oh, yes.
I've learned my lesson. If there's something that I get that kind of intuitive hit, it's like, no, I have to just listen and trust and just know that it's needed, either right now or it will be soon or maybe even in a few years, but it's making its way into your life for a reason.
Yes. Yeah. It's a problem when you have a tourmaline addiction.
Yeah. Oh, you're a person after my own heart. That's my probably my weakness too, is the tourmalines. Can't ever get enough. Well, oh, Philip, it was just a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much. I'm
Thank,
sure everyone learned so much from this conversation, and I'm so grateful. So thank you.
thank you.
And thank all of you for watching. We'll see you soon. Crystal blessings.